Good morning, big girls. Today, we're going to dive into 7 wide receivers that are going to break out all over the place in fantasy football this year. There is one minor criteria to get on this list. They have never finished as a top 24 fantasy wide receiver, all right? Some of them might be surprising. You might have thought that they got onto this list because they've done their thing, kind of, but not enough. They haven't got there. This is the year that they do get there. We're getting over the hump. And we'll just start off with a bang, all right? Number one player up on this list is no other than G. Willie, Garrett Wilson of the New York Jets. I want to start off with this statistic, this number, this analytical measure that I found for y'all, all right? Aaron Rodgers has been a quarterback in the NFL for, quite some time. Over that span, he has had 6 instances, 6 wide receivers that have had a season where they've seen 140 or more targets from him. All right, we've had Devontae Adams 3 times. We've had Jordy Nelson twice. We've had Greg Jennings once. These are the only 6 instances in which a wide receiver has seen 140 targets from Aaron Rodgers. That's not even really that high of a mark. According to this chart, the worst fantasy finish of any player that has seen 140 or more targets from Aaron Rodgers was the wide receiver 4. I don't mean a wide receiver 4. I mean the wide receiver 4 in fantasy football, all right? That was Greg Jennings back in 2008. The majority of them were the wide receiver 1, at least on a points per game basis. As you can see, if you're getting peppered with Aaron Rodgers targets, you are getting peppered with fantasy points. Your team is going to get peppered with fantasy points. Garrett Wilson last year had about 170 targets. He's going to get, 145 to 165 targets from Aaron Rodgers this year. There's nowhere else to go in that passing game, okay? Mike Williams is almost 30 years old, coming off an ACL tear. I have very little faith that he's going to stay healthy for the entire year. When you look at what Wilson's actually done in 2023 last year, obviously doing it with Zach Wilson, he finished as the wide receiver 39 in points per game and the 31 in 2022. He is just so much fucking better than those numbers, and it's very obvious when you actually just watch him play, when you watch him run routes. Last year, in expected fantasy points per game, so you talk about all the opportunities he had, what a normal receiver with good targets, with catchable targets, would have finished as the wide receiver 6 in fantasy points per game. And I think that's almost low for him, right? Anytime I'm in an underdog draft and I can grab him at the 110, 111, 112, I'm ecstatic. He is the easiest back half of the pick that you can make in fantasy football this year. And you look at his charting from Matt Harmon over at receptionperception.com, 96th percentile success rate versus man coverage, 93rd versus press, 70. This is elite. He is about to enter prime Stephon Diggs territory. He is this year's CeeDee Lamb. It's just over for you hoes that are doubting Mr. Garrett Wilson this year. Out of 120 qualified receivers, Garrett Wilson ranked 53rd in yards per route run, while the other Jets receivers ranked 112th and 113th. The point is, yes, Garrett Wilson's raw numbers weren't great relative to the other 25 receivers that ranked above him in the NFL last year. But when you talk about what he did relative to the players that were in the same situation as him, the guys that were on his team, he was abnormally good, all right? And we're finally going to get, obviously the question is okay, Aaron Rodgers peppered these other guys with targets, 140 targets plus, 2016 Aaron Rodgers is probably different than 2024 Aaron Rodgers. And I don't disagree with you. Obviously there's a little bit of concern there, but I didn't feel like his arm was really going anywhere when he left Green Bay and moved over to New York. Obviously, there might be some lingering effects from the power of the Achilles coming up to the arm, but I'm only technically a doctor. I'm not going to be out here trying to forecast what Aaron Rodgers' arm is going to look like. I will just say the last time we saw him play, it looked pretty fine to me. So if Garrett Wilson is going to get those types of targets, Garrett Wilson is going to put up that type of beat for your fantasy team. Okay, so Garrett Wilson is number 1 on this list. Drake London is number 2 on this list. And similar to Garrett Wilson, despite being immensely talented, Drake has finished outside of the top 30, 35 fantasy wide receivers in each of his first 2 seasons because of atrocious quarterback play. London, however, gets a huge upgrade at QB with Kirk Cousins coming in, a huge scheme upgrade with Raheem Morris coming in. And I think overall, listen, I've voiced my concerns about where he's going in underdog drafts. He's like the 2-2, the 2-3. That's rich for me. But this list is about dudes that are going to take that step up from wide receiver 30, wide receiver 26 to that top 15 spot, right? And I got no doubt that Drake London is going to end up being a top 15 fantasy wide receiver. He's a dude that succeeds in all different routes versus man, versus zone, versus press. He is just 22 years old. as I am filming this. Maybe he turned 23 within the last week or so. I don't know, but he's 22 years old, at least for when I was researching this, right? He's already had 2 NFL campaigns under his belt. Both were relatively successful given the opportunities that he got. He came in young as hell. He is younger than Puka, Tank Dell, Jaden Reed, Ricky Pearsall, Xavier Leggett. Like he is young. Again, and I don't agree with his UD price, but he should break out this year, see a ton more success in Atlanta. The entire offense should also do the same. So Drake London, number 2 on this list. We're going to get into some rookies here, which is kind of bullshit. Like I'm definitely skirting the line here where you guys might get upset at me. I'm just out here yapping. You guys might tell me enough yapping. I understand. It's all I do. It's what I do for a living. There ain't no stopping me. So Marvin Harrison Jr., if you are like just coming around to fantasy football right now, it's the dead heat of July. It's the fucking dog days of summer right now. Marvin Harrison was the number 4 overall pick to the Arizona Cardinals. This man is 6'3". This man is 205 pounds. And yes, this man is the son of the great Colts wide receiver Marvin Harrison. And Marvin Harrison Jr. seems to be every bit the elite prospect and far more hyped up than Marvin Harrison coming into the league, okay? Everything he put on tape at Ohio State just screams that this guy is going to be elite off the rip. And when you look at the openings available in Arizona, they have the 4th most wide receiver targets available. Okay. I just don't want to overthink this one. Hollywood's not there, and all those guys kind of left that piece together targets. Rondell Moore and all these like wasteful targets will start to trickle over to Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride. And I kind of look at, the first year that DeAndre Hopkins was out there with Kyler Murray. That's another point. Like Kyler Murray's finally going to be, 2 years removed from the ACL, fully healthy, like ready to go. D-Hop's first year with Kyler, 115 catches on 160 targets, 1,407 yards. Okay, so like we can just kind of leave it at that. Marvin Harrison, another guy going at the 1-2 turn of underdog drafts. Again, a little bit hesitant there, but like if he drops to the late 2nd, early 3rd, I'm all over that. So before we jump into all the rookie talk, I'm just letting y'all know our draft guide is live for pre-order right now on BDGE.co, and it'll have all the takes, okay? It'll have all the must-draft players, all our favorite sleepers, pick 100 or later, our absolute fade list, dudes that we're not touching, all of our rankings in standard, half PPR, full PPR, super flex, 1 quarterback, all that shit. Plus, we have a bunch of new tools coming your way this year. I think the tiebreaker matrix is our newest and most useful tool that you guys are going to find. So that's available right now. It'll go live August 1st. The cheapest way to get it, however, is by depositing on underdogfantasy.com or just downloading the app. We'll have the link down below for you. It's $10. You deposit on there, $10 using promo code BDGE. All right, deposit on Underdog Fantasy. Use code BDGE. Not only are they going to hit you with a bunch of deposit matches and a bunch of deposit bonuses, you'll have a free square to play with. I think they have Patrick Mahomes at 0.5 passing yards for week 1. If that's not the one, it's something fucking else. Whatever. You get free squares on there to pick from, as well as getting the draft guide for free. All right, so $10 will get you a bunch of bonuses, a free square. It's basically fucking free value at this point. All right, that is the cheapest way, but that is only for first-time depositors on Underdog. If you're already deposited on Underdog, then you will have to pre-order for a discounted price until August 1st on BDGE.co. We've got everything on there. And just going down the list of rookies, I'll just give you quick thoughts on all the other guys that I think are going relatively high in Underdog drafts. Like ones that I see that have a path to finish as top 24 wide receivers, but aren't necessarily like hard coded onto the list. I don't want them on record because I don't actually believe that they'll really get there. I think Malik Neighbors is, the obvious answer here on the New York Giants. He's fucking immensely talented. He's a guy who can make plays with the ball in his hands. They have very little target competition with Saquon gone, with Darren Waller gone. So I'd imagine they're gonna write up a lot of plays for him. He's going in like the 3rd round of Underdog drafts, which I'm having a very hard time getting behind. He's good enough that as a rookie, he can go over that 1,000-yard mark, which is very, a very high level for a rookie wide receiver to get to. But it's going to be one of those like 70, 75 catch, 1,000 yards, 4, maybe 5 touchdown seasons. So unless it's like full PPR, it's going to be a very tough sell for me getting behind him as like 3rd round pick. When you have the guys that you get in the 4th round, like the DJ Moores or even like the Devontae Smiths, or, guys that I feel without a doubt have the same floor as Malik Neighbors, but probably have more ceiling. I don't see a ton of ceiling in New York this year with Malik in his first year there as a rookie. Rome Odunze is the next receiver in ADP off the list here. I just think he's going to have way too tough of a time with the real target competition with Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. And they brought in DeAndre Swift, and Cole Kmet's a good red zone target, so I don't really see him get there. Ladd McConkey could definitely be a sneaky PPR, like top 24 wide receiver. I like Josh Palmer in like half PPR standard and those kind of scoring settings. But Ladd could definitely step right in the slot role, see 6 to 8 targets a game off the rip. And like, again, full PPR, I could see him creeping into that like 24 to 30 range. So he might be able to break it. Keon Coleman would really have to hit his upside in this offense. There's a ton of targets up for grabs in Buffalo. You could see from that chart that I put on for Arizona before. Arizona was number 4 with 164 available wide receiver targets, which was 59% of them last year. Buffalo's the top of that list with 283 targets available at the wide receiver position. That was 86.3% of all the targets last year, which is fucking nuts. Diggs is gone. Gabriel Davis is gone. So there's a lot of opportunity, but I don't have that much confidence he's going to be a big target share guy immediately. I think we're going to have to find out what Keon Coleman is over the first half of the season. But they brought in guys like Curtis Samuel. They have Khalil Shakir. They have Dalton Kincaid, obviously James Cook. They went a lot more run heavy, and they just started to work through their running backs a lot more once Joe Brady took over as the OC the second half of the year. So those are kind of my takes on the rookies this year. If you want me to go more in depth on like the rookie class, do some like must draft rookies video just specifically for that, you can comment that down below, and I'll rip that off if you'd like. Rip that shit like a Band-Aid. The next dude, number 4 on the list, I believe, is Zay Flowers of the Baltimore Ravens. He's coming off of a really, really impressive rookie year, 77 catches, 858 yards, 5 touchdowns, finished as the wide receiver 29 in half PPR, wide receiver 30 in full PPR. The man was absolutely fucking flying all over the field, all right? Like his win rate versus man coverage, number 6 in the NFL. His just overall route win rate was number 6 in the NFL. This was Todd Monken's first year commanding this offense, and Lamar Jackson won the fucking MVP. Okay, so they were great, but I actually think this is not the best that they can be, especially not from a passing perspective. I also think there's maybe something to them not having the best defense in the NFL anymore. Like, you know, when you have a great defense or you have any sort of like greatness happening in a season, it's typically because a lot of players played really well, and when players play really well, they start to cash in and other teams start to give them money. So they lose Patrick Queen, they lose Geno Smith, and don't get me wrong, they're still going to be great. They might even be the best, but maybe not elite. Maybe that leads to more time and possession and plays for the Baltimore offense. And they got the same old shit behind Zay Flowers at wide receiver, Rashad Bateman, Nelson Aguilar, no more Odell Beckham. So it's not like they brought in any real target competition here. So I'd only imagine his volume continues to increase. And I know a lot of people had concerns, myself included, was something I was looking at earlier on in the summer, was like Zay Flowers really didn't start to pop off until Mark Andrews was out of the lineup. But I also think it's probably not fair because most of the numbers that skew towards Andrews being in the lineup was like the first 6 to 8 weeks of the season, where if you're a rookie wide receiver, you typically don't really catch your stride until a month, 2 months, 3 months in, and you're not really playing a full slate of snaps until that far into the season. So Zay, I think, just got better and better as the season progressed. I think he's a great separator, a great route runner, and I just don't think we've seen the ceiling of what this passing offense could be getting more secure under Todd Monken. And this is not a real stat, but it felt like when we were watching last year, there was a ton of like uncharacteristic deep balls that kind of just didn't connect with Zay Flowers for one unlucky reason or another, whether it was a drop or it was just overthrown or something. But I felt like there was a lot of yards left on the field for Zay Flowers. Next up, we're staying interdivision. It's George Pickens, Pittsburgh Steelers. It's kind of cheating because he finished as the wide receiver 26 last year, but fuck it. All right, we ride. I made the criteria, we put a hard line, and we pushed past it. So he was the wide receiver 26 last year. For me, when I look at George Pickens coming into this year, it feels like a little bit of a perfect storm. He is a 23-year-old with a crazy athletic profile, coming off of a really nice second-year breakout, 1,140 yards after an 800-yard rookie season. Like, that is how you progress. Go look at, like, Amon-Ra St. Brown's numbers. I'm not comparing the two, but if you look at the linear progression of how receivers tend to go, he feels like he's along that list, and I will provide you with the list. The list of wide receivers that had an 800-yard rookie season followed by an 1,100-yard sophomore season. That's an elite list. Now, the situation is pretty sexy out there for Georgie Pickens, all right? They brought in, I shouldn't say sexy, sorry. They're going to be a very run-heavy offense, but they brought in a non-Kenny Pickett quarterback, right? Russell Wilson is there. So we've seen Russell Wilson just kind of target his one guy, like find the guy that he wants to attach himself to. Cortland Sutton last year, obviously in Seattle, we've had seasons with DK. We've had seasons with Lockett. We've had seasons with Doug Baldwin. And Deontay Johnson is gone, right? So that opens up over 9 targets per game. That's what that dude has averaged over the last 4 years. So a ton of volume could be going to George Pickens. I mean, George Pickens did this last year, 1,140 yards with like 100 and I think it was 106 targets, all right? So we should see his target numbers go from 106 to, I want to be practical. Again, this is going to be a very run-heavy offense, but someone's going to have to get targets. I'd imagine he'll see upwards of 120, and this is a dude that can take any given play and take it the distance. All right, so that also cannot be like unaccounted for. Behind them, they have like nothing. They brought in, right now the reports out of camp are that like Van Jefferson is the number 2 in front of Roman Wilson. If Van Jefferson's your number fucking 2, George Pickens he's getting 1 billion targets this year. Forget fucking 120, 130. 1 billion might be on the fucking slate for him. And I get it. Like, you want to label Pickens as this boomer bust guy. He also had 5 individual games of 100 plus yards last year. And 4 of those 5 were 125 yards, scoring in 4 of them. All right. So like when he goes boom, he goes fucking boom. Like double boom. So sure, maybe boom, maybe bust. Maybe with more targets, he's a little bit more secure and has a better floor. But I feel very confident with George Pickens this year. Someone finishing inside the top 20, if not the top 15 wide receivers, just based on volume and just role in the offense alone. All right. And we move on to number, 6, 7, 8, something like that. Jaxon Smith-Njigba, the Seattle Seahawk slot wide receiver. Maybe Tyler Lockett's decline is here. Maybe the pass-heavy nature of Shane Waldron's new offense pops here. I think one thing that we probably need to look a little bit deeper into is last year, Seattle, and this was brought to my attention by Matt Harmon. I saw a clip that he was talking about it on Twitter. In week 1, Seattle lost both of their starting offensive tackles, like right off the rip. And for a lot of the year going forward, at least for like the first half of the season, they went very, very super heavy tight end, 2 tight end, 3 tight end sets. And that was to account for the loss in blocking prowess because they lost both of their starting tackles off the rip. All right. So they'd let Noah Fant run some routes. They'd always have an extra tight end in to help with blocking, which meant that they couldn't have a third wide receiver, JSN, who was the slot wide receiver, off the field. And now that they're bringing in the University of Washington's offense, where they ran 3 wide receiver sets at an extreme, like 77% of the time, with Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk, and Roma Dunze, that's probably the offense that they're going to have with JSN. And, again, shouting out Matt Harmon, which seems to be just the fucking majority of my videos at this point. He's the GOAT. His reception perception chart was pretty fucking good for a rookie. 70th percentile success rate versus man, 76th versus zone, and 60th versus press. So despite the numbers, like the receiving efficiency statistics not really being great, him by himself as a route runner, still there. That's what he was at Ohio State. He put up huge numbers. We'll have to see really what the opportunity looks like, but he should have a much, much better sophomore season than he did rookie season, obviously. And for the last player up on this list, I think we can go down the same path. Another slot wide receiver for the New England Patriots. That's Mr. Pop Douglas. Popless Douglas, demario. He's going to be a PPR stud this year. All right. He really didn't play much until the second half of the year, but once he got on the field, the man was putting up 10 plus PPR points pretty much every game. He was a sure 5 for 55. I think there's a chance that he becomes the leading target in this offense. I think there's a chance he becomes Drake May's favorite target in this offense. Drake May was talking about how he reminded him of Josh Downs. Josh Downs and Drake May made fucking magic together at UNC. So I love the comparison. This offense, I think, could be better than people are probably giving it credit for. If Drake May goes out and starts, yucking the fucking ball and gets in the end zone quite often, that could be a Demario Douglas thing, right? Like Jacoby Myers couldn't score in New England, and then he started scoring in Las Vegas. If this is the different offense in New England, maybe there's more touchdowns to be had. Maybe Demario pops off like Jacoby did a little bit last year, all right? So I love Demario Douglas this year. I think he's one of the best under-the-radar sophomore wide receivers to really get after. So, quick recap. We've got Garrett Wilson. We've got Drake London. We've got Marvin Harrison Jr. We've got Zay Flowers. We've got George Pickens, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, and Demario Douglas. Let me know some of your favorite breakout wide receivers for this year. Dudes that have never finished inside the top 24. I'm going to be doing this exact same video for running backs tomorrow, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel. You don't want to miss it. And we've been putting out content now for a couple months. So if you've missed any of the previous videos, just go search on the channel. I love you. I'm done. I'm done yapping.